Call the regular meeting of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury meeting to order today, Thursday, June 20th. We ask that you please silence your cell phone, and if anyone wants to speak on anything on the agenda, please fill out a blue slip and bring them to Miss Jessica at the front table. We will now have the invocation and the pledge by Mr. Smith.
Every head bowed, every eye closed. Lord, Heavenly Father, give us wisdom as we conduct our meeting tonight. Look over all our members and all our jurors and all our staff as we guide to try to make decisions in your way. Heavenly Father, we come to you with open arms to make sure that we do follow your ways. And all these we ask in your name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Mr. Abshire?
Here.
Mr. Egerton?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Burley is out of town. Mr. Clement?
Here.
Ms. Eason?
Here.
Mr. Hillary?
Here.
Mr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Marcantel is unable to attend. Mr. Quinn?
Here.
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 And President Barty.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. 1A, ratify the issuance of one special events
moved.
permit.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Clement and a second by Mr. Gwynn. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 1B, receive a report from staff regarding proposed amendments to community-type sewage system and drainage standards. Mr. Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Barty. I've got a brief presentation for you, just a few slides. Realizing that most of you may be redundant for many of you may have seen it, one form of the version of these in both the sewer committee recently held or the drainage committee or both. So it'll be a little bit redundant, but felt we should at least go through the highlights of those presentations, and I'll try and cover those as quickly as possible. And when we're done, we'll be glad to try and answer any questions. So tonight, there, the yellow bullet, if you would, June 20th, we're really at about step 4 of a process of looking to amend both some drainage ordinances and sewer community system ordinances. So if you might recall, back May 20th, we had the committee meetings, a series of committee meetings. The next day, we went to planning and zoning. We did basically the same exact presentation both times, and that really kicked off a sort of a 30-day public input period. We were back at the planning and zoning meeting Tuesday of this week, where they recommended that it go forward, on to the body that makes the final decision. In that process, we did pick up some comments. We had some people there, some stakeholders, if you would, were there Tuesday night. They had some questions and some comments. We have since reached out to them. They reached out to us. We've scheduled some meetings for next week to begin some dialogue on things that are, they want to work on. Really tonight is just a quick introduction of the highlights one more time, which will start an additional roughly 30-day period of review time for you and allow us time again, obviously, to work on things if we need to or tweak it. So we would anticipate item 5 there, trying to be back before you at your final meeting in July to hopefully take action if we're ready at that point. So quickly, the next slide is really the 2 drainage standards, and based on the comments at the planning and zoning meeting, I don't think we have much opposition at all to this, either of these changes. These are good changes. Our development community, our stakeholders asked for these changes. We're more than willing to give them. We think they're positive little changes that'll just make development in specific cases a little easier. So the minor subdivision adjustment just allows it to be a little less engineering study to go on in a minor sub when you're making big lots and relatively small houses, anything over 3 acres. It's really kind of overkill to do a full-blown runoff management plan only to find out that you don't need a detention pond. We'll get all the other things done in the remaining abbreviated management plan that gets developed for these sites. We'll get adequate right-of-ways and those sorts of things and setbacks, but we really don't need to go through that last bit of exercise, which can be costly in terms of engineering study. Item 2 is just field mitigation, and as I've tried to explain before, there's a point when you reach the southern end of our parish where you're really down into a part of the watershed, the overall parish and topography, where if we're flooding to the 100-year flood elevation, it's going to be because of a storm surge event. And in reality, you're in a zone in our parish where mitigating field that would be used to build a home or a business on is really a little bit unnecessary based on the situation we're in with the topography. So this was a request, and I think it's a good move. It'll allow things to go on down there without that added burden of mitigating field, and I really don't feel like it's going to impact our watersheds at all adversely. So really no negative comments at the planning and zoning or anything in between on these two, and I feel like they're going to be well received. The second half of it is the sewer ordinance changes, and this is tied strictly to the community type sewer systems. There's basically 5 changes there that we're really looking at, and I think item number 1 is really some simple definitions that we can all agree on pretty easily. Item number 2 is probably the toughest one and the most controversial or the most questioned, and that is to turn these systems over to the police jury upon construction for us, the police jury, your staff, to operate and maintain them going forward. And this is probably the most questioned one. Why would we have to do that? Really, at the end of the day, I feel like this is a very positive move. Needs to be done for the long-term maintenance and care of these systems, to operate them like a true municipal system. They're not really ever going to be their community systems, but we can operate them as such. We can combine all their buying power, their maintenance power, one team to take care of everything. We can have a consistent approach across the parish at all the various locations where we have these in future subdivisions. So the common problem today that we see in systems that are not maintained by the police jury is in some spots it's awful hard to get local reaction to a problem. The owner of these systems may be well out of town. It's a long response time. We just feel like it's going to be a better move long term to put these systems under your maintenance. Item number 3 is really just adopting or identifying a set of standards to be built to. The systems, we've had this basic set of standards now. We've been using it for several years since you adopted the original ordinances. They've kind of been tweaked to a neutral point where they're easy enough to build. They're still expensive, but they're pretty much a middle of the road system. So that's what item 3 is, kind of reiterating that. Item 4 is actually the most or the biggest part of the changes that are written into the ordinances, but look, in all honesty, I don't know that they'll ever really get used. That is a process to be able to adopt old or existing systems as one of your own to take over maintenance. This really probably would be a good thing to be able to do that, but this process sets a standard for bringing it up to some level of conformance with current standards or usability before you would take it over, so you're not taking a total jump system, if you would. Well, that process of bringing it up to standards would probably always be expensive and maybe even cost prohibitive to some degree. So whether it ever really gets used, we'll see, but this provides for a process to do it and a set of standards to follow if we're going to do it. And the last thing is really just updating your right-of-way utility plan, which is where all the sewer lines are at in your right right-of-ways, and this establishes a location for them, and that had to be revised as well in the process. So it's relatively goes with the territory. If you're going to have sewer systems, you have to really fit them into the right-of-way. So just quickly, you've probably seen this map. I just want to give you this map one more time to show you really the scale of our current situation. And right now is the time to sort of deal with it. If you look close, or if you look at the green dots, are the systems that we now operate as community systems. The red ones are those that are community systems that are operated by private individuals or businesses around the parish. And then the blue ones are operated privately, but they were developed before our ordinance came along. So these are some of the ones that if you look, some of you are probably pretty familiar with some of them. There are a lot of you where your problems have been over the years. In essence, the point I'd like to make with showing this map is if we don't get this under one system, if we don't get to a consistent approach for pricing, how we maintenance them, how we build them, how we run them, these would tend to proliferate as the parish develops, and each one of these begins to act like a special service sewer district, in essence. You're going to get a different level of everything at each one of these stars. And as that goes further and further, you understand what that means. You're just not going to have consistent policy and practice. So I do believe it's the right thing to do. I would encourage y'all at the end of this period to seriously consider adopting the changes. We do plan to meet with the stakeholders and try to work out anything that we can, along those lines. It's going to make it work and not be too cumbersome. But the end result is hopefully that the police jury and future police juries are owning and operating these systems, just like the roads, just like the water system, just like the other major infrastructure components that go out there in the development of a new residential subdivision. I think that's it. I'll be glad to take any questions. I know you may have some speakers as well. I'll be glad to come back up if needed.
Mr. Gillard?
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
On meeting next week with those people, if there's any changes that would be better for both sides, would there be a change now or no?
Oh, yes, sir. Like I said, we have 30 days. We're going to meet. If there's a substantial change, at the night we ask you to approve it or vote on it, we're going to highlight that for you. We're going to say this is what we started with, this is what we finished with, this is what we recommend going forward. If for some reason we can't reach an agreement, I think we'll report that back to you as well. So I believe we have adequate time to work in a direction that works for everyone. That's going to be the goal.
Okay. Thanks, Alan.
Mr. Andrew Potter?
So I'm confused, Mr. Wainwright. You said planning and zoning had approved this at their meeting?
They did. They did, and I'll let Wes, if you'd like to talk. So part of the process of changing ordinances runs it through the planning and zoning because these ordinances are in what's called Chapter 26. So it is a required step, and they recommended it going forward.
I guess where I'm confused is if we just had some stakeholders express concerns, why would something be adopted before hearing what those concerns would be?
Well, it wasn't really
We're not-
adopted.
It wasn't adopted.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not at that point yet.
Okay, but I know you said it asked for July. I would like, before that happens, to hear what the concerns of the stakeholders, maybe report back to the jury, hey, this is an update, just like you're reporting this evening. Report back what these concerns are so we can hear them.
Certainly, and I do believe we're going to have some speakers here tonight.
Yeah.
We're probably going to
Yeah.
hear them right now.
Mr. Barris, did you have anything? Okay, we do have a speaker on this item, Mr. Bart Yakinsak. Please, your name and address for the records, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bart Yakubzak with Jack Lawton Companies, 1450 William, Lake Charles. Good evening, members of the jury. Thank you for your time, which I'll only take 3 minutes or less of. Mr. Gabb has reminded me of that. as we continue to work together with you all to encourage economic development in the parish and to bring in new jobs, new revenues, diversify our economy, one thing that's important is that our working together needs to include that we adopt ordinances that complement that economic growth. And so tonight I want to discuss two things. Number one, the drainage changes. When this jury, and it wasn't, all of you weren't here, but in 2018 this jury passed a new drainage ordinance. You all asked stakeholders, you asked the community, you asked landowners and developers to bear with you that we had to make a change, but that if you find things in this ordinance that we're adopting that require change, please bring them back to us. And that's what those two changes are here tonight. Those two changes are things where we heard from people. I'll give you an example. The change with regard to 3-acre tracts, that deals with a lot of your constituents who live on what we call ranchettes now. So if a young family is going to buy 3 acres and build a single-family home and a nice-sized shop and a driveway, it is absolutely scientifically impossible for that development to change the hydrology on that 3 acres. But our ordinance was still requiring that young family to go and hire an engineer and do a very sophisticated engineering study, when all the engineers, and including the staff, recognized that hydrology wouldn't change. And so the staff recognized that early on. I compliment them because they began implementing that with their discretion on those cases, I think on a case-by-case basis. And we just needed to change it in the ordinance. And so that's what you have tonight. That's being changed. Commend Mr. Wainwright, Mr. Freelow, the whole engineering team, the planning and zoning team on working together to recognize things that make development better and promote that growth. Second, I'm here because I'm optimistic, because I think we're going to continue that same good collaboration with the engineering department on these sewer changes. I met with Mr. Wainwright and Mr. Freelow after the planning and zoning meeting on Tuesday. We discussed the changes. We discussed that we all recognized that there weren't any developers in the room. There weren't any engineers in the room. There weren't any sewer utility providers in the room, private or sewer manufacturers in the room. We have all those groups in this parish, and they're a heck of a lot smarter about sewer than I am, and probably, without offense, most of you all are. So we need their collaboration on making an ordinance change. And Mr. Wainwright, Mr. Freelow agreed, and we've already got a meeting set for next week to get some of those guys in the room and to talk about it. I call this the not hothead meeting. I'm not going to participate in it if people are going to come in there and kick and scream and holler and yell. I'm there to be a diplomat and try to get the best thing for our parish so we can continue to grow. That said, I think that the revision has to give us all comfort, you especially comfort who get the calls, that raw sewage is going to be dealt with, treated, and disposed of properly in perpetuity. I think everybody agrees with that. We all have a concern. Nobody wants to ride around or see children playing by ditches that have bad stuff in them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we got to get there in a way that still complements people doing subdivisions in Calcasieu Parish of lots less than an acre. Because what we've seen in the last 12
Mr.
years...
Yaginsak, I'm going to need you to wrap it up. It's been the 3 minutes,
I'm
okay?
finished. What we've seen is a trend of going that developers just steer to 1-acre developments. And so we're not seeing the bigger subdivisions with the smaller ones because they've become cost prohibitive. So I'm committed to working with that group and with your staff next week, and hopefully, I mean, if something can be resolved in 30 days, great. If not, I suggest 60, 90. We get there, we get this done now before there's any more proliferation of bad actors.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Landry, you have a question? for
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. President. I'll ask you the question, was there anything else that you wanted to say since you ran out of time? Now that I've asked you that question, you may finish.
Mr. Landry, I certainly appreciate that, because Mr. Gabb is unforgiving with his 3 minutes. But that was my last point, is that I'm optimistic that we can achieve what I think the intent of this jury is, and also keep our parish developing.
Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. Partee. Bart, I appreciate you coming. I was part of that 2018 marathon, you know, and I have full confidence in the stakeholders that participated in that, and the stakeholders we'll find to participate in this. I think we've got a good working relationship, and you know, if we do need to let it go a little bit longer, you know, things like that, just so we can get it right, I'll be a big fan of that. We're here to work with you guys, and we need the input. You know, we can't assume that we know everything, like you said, about sewage and all that. So we're here to work with y'all and everybody who wishes to work with us. Thank you.
Mr. Gabb?
Oh, no, I was just going to defend myself. That Bart and I confirmed with him 3 times. 3 minutes enough, 3 minutes enough. He said yes every time. I didn't believe him then. I don't believe him now. So.
Thank you all.
Anyone else have any more questions or comments for Mr. Yakinsak? Mr. Wainwright? Okay, do we need a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Stelly. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 1C, adopt an ordinance approving the following rezoning application, 8650 and 8668 Bud Stale Road in Ward 3. I need a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Eason and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 1D, adopt ordinances rescinding the following ordinances with respect to the following adjudicated properties.
Move on all bullets.
1, ordinance number 7492 and ordinance number 7808. 2, ordinance number 7495 and ordinance number 7808. And number 3, ordinance number 7509 and ordinance number 7810. We have a motion by Mr. Barris to approve all bullets and a second by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 1E, authorize the Director of Division of Planning and Development to
Move on all
notify the
bullets.
following property owners to show cause at a public hearing on August 1st, 2024, as to why the structures on the properties as stipulated should not be condemned. Number 1, 3530 Deer Run Road in Gillis. 2, 517 West Park Manor, Moss Bluff. 3, 4035 Ellis Street, Lake Charles. 4, 2352 North Flounder Drive, Lake Charles. 5, 332 Freedom Road, Lake Charles. 6, 7686 Copperleaf Drive, Lake Charles. 7, 7798 Elliott Road, Lake Charles. 8, 2883 Agnes Road, Lake Charles. 9, 2587 Red Davis McAllister Road in Lake Charles. 10, 6062 Mary Ann Street, Iowa. 11, 5206 Fry Road, Corliss. 12, 1010 South Perkins Ferry Road, Moss Bluff. And 13, 1624 South Perkins Ferry Road, Moss Bluff. We have a motion by Mr. Andropon on all bullets and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 2A, approve the minutes of the special meeting of the police jury dated May 20th, 2024. We have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 2B, approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated May 23rd, 2024. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Quinn. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 2C, adopt a resolution approving the purchase of property located on Lorraine Road for an amount not to exceed the appraised value. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Mr. Landry. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. How long is it going to take y'all to come up with a plan to show us what we're going to do with that park or that property?
I'd ask Mr. Kelly to come up to the podium. We've discussed this.
I wonder which is gonna come first, the oak tree or the plan for this, I wonder. I hope
Mr.
your
Kelly, please
park
state
gets
your
first.
department, please, for the record.
Quicker.
Dean Kelly, Director of Facilities. As far as the plan goes, we don't have one yet. This piece of property is something that's been blocking the development of Lorraine for, well over 20 years now. My entire career, we've been talking about this piece. So to finally get it allows us now to plan a little bit more of what we need to do with that property. We need additional parking there. We need a new set of bathrooms. When we build a new bathroom, we can move it around and open up the park a little bit. So it'd be pretty easy to put a plan together, but it's not on paper today. We needed this property to be able to move forward.
I'm sure it has water frontage also.
Not this piece of property, no.
So it doesn't have water frontage?
No, this is a very narrow tract. It's 3 acres that runs right along the road as you approach Lorraine. So without that piece, you can't really do what we need to do. We can't move all the puzzle pieces of the park around to develop it better than what it is today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Mr. Stelly.
Thank you.
It's gonna be good.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 3A, adopt a resolution approving a professional services contract for hazardous mitigation services of sewage treatment facility. We have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 3B, adopt a resolution approving an amendment to the professional engineering services contract to include additional services for the Calcasieu Parish Master Transportation Thoroughfare Plan.
Move.
We have a motion by Ms. Eason and a second
Second.
by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 3C, adopt a resolution approving an amendment to the contract for project management software. We have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 3D, adopt a resolution approving a lighting agreement to construct and install a roadway lighting system on I-210 at Cove Lane Interchange
Move on 3D.
and the I-210 Bridge and northward to I-10. We have a motion by Ms. Eason and a second
Second.
by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Stelly.
What is the cost? Is there any cost figured out yet on what our share would be?
I would ask Nick Johnson to come up. He's dealt with that more on the you're talking about the maintenance cost. It's gonna probably be more on us than the city simply because of the linear feet that's unincorporated, but I'd rather Nick get into that detail.
Nick Johnson, Engineering Department. Yeah, as Mr. Beam said, we have more linear footage of the bridge itself that we're maintenance responsibility for. But as far as dollar amounts, we don't have that in place yet.
So what is the amount to put the lights in? Do you have that amount?
I don't think we do, but DOTD has 100% cost on that installation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Landry.
So do you know what style light they're gonna put up this time? Maybe one that won't fall over 3 or 4 months after they,
I heard it's rated for.
I mean, because believe me, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we might have another hurricane at some point. So they have to plan for that.
Yes, sir. From what I heard, it's rated for at least 150 mile an hour wind.
Okay, so it's gonna happen again, is what you're telling me. Why don't it, somehow they do it with a shorter light? It doesn't need to be that tall. There has to be a different way to do that.
I would defer
I'm not
to,
an engineer and
DOTD.
I'm not the smartest guy, but I don't think I'd put the exact same light back up there. I mean, we're not paying for it, but in a way, yes, we are, because that's our tax money going to the state of Louisiana. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Further discussion? Any objection? Motion
Said too
carries.
much.
3E,
Move on 3E.
adopt an ordinance
Second.
establishing a 20 mile per hour speed limit and canceling the blanket 30-mile-per-hour speed limit on Constance Lane. We have a motion by Mr. Abshire and a second by Mr. Gwynn. Any discussion?
I do.
Yes, sir. Mr. Stelly.
I thought the minimum speed limit on a parish road was 25.
Mr. Wainwright.
I may need to get Nick back up here, but, we traditionally have set 25 is about as low as it go, but in special circumstances, it's not that there's a minimum that you can't
Okay.
exceed or go below. It's I guess, more of a standard or a policy that we've followed. Well, in this particular situation, we have some pretty serious cut-through traffic going on because of construction, and really hoping that this is gonna limit that problem, and this may go back to a better speed limit post-construction.
Thanks, thank you.
He covered it.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries.
Move on 4A.
4A, approve
Second.
payment of all current invoices and advise regarding monthly budget to actual comparisons on the general fund. We have a motion by Mr. Andropont and a second by Mr. Stelly. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4B, advertise
So
for
moved.
bids for the Goche Road Bridge Replacement Project. We have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Advertise for requests for proposals
4C.
for community partners in education and other services. We have a motion by Mr. Smith
Second.
and a second by Ms. Eason. Any discussion?
I had a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I want to find out exactly, is this all going through the Human Services Department or other agencies with this?
Yes,
With
sir,
these-
it's human services.
Human Services? Okay, so they be responsible for sending out the actual bids on everything for these particular programs?
I believe so, possibly working with finance. I need a little help on that one, or procurement.
Come on, man, give me a break or something. man.
Yes, ma'am, please state your name and address and department, please, for the record.
Erica Dozier, Programs Manager for Human Services. So the process is working with the purchasing department to submit the RFP out to the community. Upon receiving all the bids at the closure of the bid process, it'll go to our state consultant. He'll review them first, and then we'll work with the Human Services Advisory Board, which has a subset specific to reviewing the proposals, and then we'll make our choices from there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And usually it's the human services.
Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4D, advertise for requests for proposals for professional planning services
Move
for
on
the
4D.
Interstate 10
Second.
Enhancement Master Planning Project. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Ms. Eason. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4E, advertise for bids for books and multimedia self-circulation kiosks.
Move on 4E.
We have a motion by Mr. Gwynn and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4F, action on bids for collection and distribution pipe and fittings. Staff recommends the bids of Coburn Supply Company,
So moved.
Core and Main, Ferguson Waterworks, and Lafayette Wind Waterworks be accepted. We have a motion by Mr. Andropont, Mr. Abshire, I'm sorry, and a second by Mr. Andropont. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4G, action on bids for crushed stone. Staff recommends the bid of Apex Aggregate Supply, DP Aggregates, and Port Aggregates be accepted. Yes, sir, Mr. Barris.
Thank you. This APEC aggregate supply. These the same folks that we've had the pleasure of dealing with, some of the projects.
Mr. Barris, I'd have to double check my answer, but I do believe so, affiliate company.
All right. I yield back.
Okay, we need a motion and a second.
So move.
We have a
Second.
motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Stelly. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4H, action on bids for metal and aluminum pipes and fittings. Staff recommends the bid of Eunice Coastal Culvert and Supply and
Move on 4H.
Colburn Supply Company be accepted. We have a motion by Mr. Quinn and a second
Second.
by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4I, action on bids for office supplies. Staff recommends the bid of High Touch Business Services be accepted. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Abshire. You guys are slow on motions tonight. Any other discussion?
Finally catching up with y'all.
Any objection? Motion carries. 4J, action on bids for janitorial
So moved.
supplies.
Second.
Staff, now we talking.
Hey, we'll get
Staff
this-
recommends
we'll get
the
this
bid of
done.
Centos Corporation, Economical Janitorial and Paper Supplies, Interborough Packaging and Sanitary Supply Company be accepted. We have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Quinn. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4K,
So moved.
adopt the resolution on bids for Tom Abear Road Bridge replacement. Staff recommends the bid of Matt L. Gwynn Construction LLC in the amount of $2,111,914.70 be accepted. We have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Stelly. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4L, adopt a resolution accepting the Public Works
Move on 4L.
East and West Side paving improvements projects as substantially complete. We have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 4M,
Move on 4M.
adopt a resolution accepting the LA 14 and LA
Second.
397 roundabout project as complete. We have a motion by Mr. Stelly and a second by Ms. Eason. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. 5A,
Move to
Chanel
reappoint.
Industrial Airport Authority.
Second.
There's a motion to reappoint Jay Williams, Bill Hankins. We have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Ms. Eason. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Then item 6 is of advised items.
Move to adjourn.
Yes,
Before
sir.
we adjourn, may I have a point of personal privilege?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last week, we lost a member of the community, and I was unfortunately out of town and wasn't able to attend the funeral. But I want to send condolences to the family of Dan Flavin. Dan was a very strong advocate for Calcasieu Parish and Lake Charles. He, if any of you had ever sat on the other side of the desk from him and had that conversation, you know his passion was real. He spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge representing us well, and he will be very, very much missed. So my heart goes out to the family.
Thank you, Mr. Abshire.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? I, too, would like to just echo the words that you said. I wasn't able to attend the services, but not only was he a good public servant, but he was just a good man. And like I said, the area, our city, our parish, you know, lost a good one there. Mr. Hayes.
Just to chime in, guys, the one thing about Dan was he was gung-ho. If he believed in it, he dove into it. He was not shy. He would tell you exactly what he felt and why he felt exactly what he felt. He was a wonderful friend of McNeese. He followed the sports out there. He was a funding source for McNeese, he and his real estate agency. He was just a good guy, a real good guy. This was so unexpected, it's not even funny. I did go to the wake out the front of the church, around the block. I mean, it was very deserving for Dan and for his family. And he has a large family, and I hope they got some peace out of seeing all of the folks of all kind of walks in life. All kind of political people were there. It was just well-deserved for him and a tremendous loss for Calcasieu Parish.
Mr. Andrew Pott.
Well, everyone's pretty much touched on the type and the character that Dan was. I categorize him too as a bulldog. And you know, people tend to forget, but years back, EPA wanted to declare part of Lake Charles area, Westlake Sulphur area as a Superfund site. If it wasn't for him going to bat and taking that on head on and getting things, that would have been a terrible thing for this parish. He led the effort and the fight on it. And, you know, many people, you tend to forget things like that, but that was extremely important for this parish.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Abshire, for that point of privilege. We have a motion to adjourn.